What's up, everybody? This is Tim from Arm Wrestling Secrets, and in this video, we're going to talk about the most important muscle for arm wrestling. Okay, everybody, let's get right into it. Okay, so we're talking about the most important muscle in arm wrestling. Okay, so that's kind of a big statement, right? I mean, there's a lot of muscles involved with arm wrestling. It's a strength sport. We have our hands and our fingers. We have our wrist flexors, right? We got our biceps. We got all of these little wrist muscles, okay? All these things are really important. We have our lat muscle, right? For our dragging, okay? Lots of different important muscles that are playing a big role at the arm wrestling table. But what I want to answer in this video is the most important muscle in arm wrestling, okay? And the way I'm going to answer that is let's look at how you lose. Let's look at how you lose your matches, okay? Because honestly, and I think this is true for most sports, I don't think there's really a whole lot to learn from your wins. Obviously, as you're starting to win, you're going to learn about how you're getting those wins, and you're gonna make your approach better every time. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. Okay, what I mean is where we have to improve. Okay, and this leads to the most important muscle in arm wrestling. Okay, so let's look at how you're losing. Okay, now I bet almost every time you lose, regardless of how you're losing, okay? You can be in a hook and you lose, okay? You can be top rolling and you lose. Your hand can be in any different position, okay, at the start. You can go for any different type of move, okay? But the ending, I bet, is very similar, okay? Now, let's look at a hook, okay? You're in your hook, you're doing pretty good. You got a good offensive position here, right? And then all of a sudden, what happens if you're losing, okay? What happens? Does your hand just go down like this? No, okay? You went from this to losing the match. Now let's look at it in slow motion, okay? What happened? Where's the weakness really, okay? Now, it's probably like this, right? You know, look at my hand. See how it goes up? It goes upwards. When you go to the pin pad, or when you're getting driven to the pad, when you're losing your match, your hand most likely in almost every case is turning upwards, isn't it? Okay, so let's say even in the hook example again, okay? When you're losing, your hand's going like this, okay? Now let's look at another example immediately, okay? Let's look at a straight wrist example, okay? Where you're just, you know, you're going for your top roll, okay? And same thing. What happens when you start losing? What happens, okay? Does your arm just go? No. Watch my hand, okay? Watch, okay? You're losing your match. Oh, you're losing, okay? Your arm doesn't just go down. Watch my hand, okay? And it doesn't just go down this way, okay? Your hand is going to turn upwards. And you lose the match, right? Okay, and pay attention. Next time you're losing your match, I can almost guarantee you're going to be looking at your palm when you're losing the match. You're not going to be looking at the back of your hand, okay? You're going to be looking at your palm. Regardless of the position that you're in, when you're losing your match, your palm's going up. Okay, now let's go back to the answer for this video, okay? Most important muscle for arm wrestling. Okay, what muscle dictates you being able to keep your hand turned over this way? Because if you can keep it this way, how's the person going to pin you with your palm up? Okay, that's where the break in the chain is happening when you lose your match. Okay, and this is for everybody. This isn't just you. This is me. This is every pro arm wrestler. When they're losing their matches, more than likely, 99% of the time, their palm gets exposed. They're not losing their match with their thumb up, okay? And they're not losing their match with their palm turned turned down. They're getting their palm turned up, okay? And that leads us to where we're going. Okay, so like I said, what muscle dictates you being able to keep your hand turned over? Like, what muscle do you have that resists you're getting turned over, okay? Because if you can stay here and you don't get turned over, how are you losing? Right? Okay? You're losing at some point. You're getting exposed that way. Your hand is getting flipped up, okay? What muscle is responsible for that? It's the answer to the video. Same thing here, okay? What muscle is going to let you keep your hand without getting it flipped over, okay? It's your pronator, okay? You can see it there. Your pronation muscle, okay? Same thing when you're hooking. It's the same, okay? When you're at a hook, pronation. When you're losing in a hook, your pronator is being attacked, okay? Now, everything else is too, but that's not what's losing the match. Every time somebody loses an arm wrestling match, there's some weak point that's being exposed, and the body's like, we're going to rip something, and it's going to allow the arm to go down, okay? That's what's going on, okay? So when we're looking at your arm, when it's going down, the only thing that's really going to help protect you, keeping your hand from getting exposed and flipped over, is your pronator. It's the only muscle you have that's responsible for keeping your palm turned down towards the table, okay? Or at least away from the pin pad, okay? When your palm is being flipped up, it's your pronator that's too weak to beat that opponent, okay? Same exact scenario. If you're having a great match here and you're doing fine and all of a sudden you start losing, okay, your pronator is too weak. That's the problem. Assuming you know what you're doing, okay? I'm assuming all of you guys, let's assume your technique is correct and you're doing things correctly. You're just losing the match, okay? And we all understand that. We all know that feeling, okay? And let's just examine it, because if you examine some of these things, you can become a tremendously better arm wrestler almost immediately just by exposing how you're losing, okay? Because everyone likes to focus on, okay, how do I get the next win? And they look for the next fancy move, okay? It's not very fun to just focus on fixing your weaknesses and focus on how you're losing, but it's the right way to move forward, and it's the right way to get better, okay? So, pronation. I made a video a little while ago, I guess it was a couple of years ago now, on the schoolboy. And the video was called, How is the Schoolboy So Good? Okay, and the video got a whole bunch of views, okay, which I get it. He's always on video beating these huge muscular guys in the gym. Now, most of the guys he's beating, at least the huge muscle guys that I was referring to in my video, they weren't pro arm wrestlers. They're just super muscular, strong guys. They don't really know what they're doing. However, it was pretty impressive, okay, because these guys are huge, okay, and at least a few years ago when I made the video, he didn't look that big, okay. He's quite a bit bigger now, but you know what I mean. His arms, it doesn't look like he could beat some of those people just by looking at them, does it? Okay. This is leading into the answer for my video, okay? Now, you already know that the most important muscle for arm wrestling, in my opinion, is pronation, okay? For the reasons I suggested, but leaning back into the schoolboy just for a second, because it's important, is look at the example, okay? He's beating these huge people. He's beating guys with huge shoulders, huge biceps, huge forearms, huge lat muscles, right? Their muscles, looking at them, their muscles are obviously the big muscles, the biceps and the shoulders and the lats. They're way bigger than schoolboys, aren't they? And yes, all of those muscles that you're seeing are stronger than the schoolboys too. They're not just visual effects, okay? Those guys are as big and strong as they look, but they're still losing to the schoolboy. Why? Because the muscle they're not training is pronation. How many of those big bodybuilding guys, and I mean, think about this. It's all gonna become clear. How many bodybuilders in the gym do you see doing pronation exercises? Right. I got my loading pin here with just a couple of weights, just as an example, okay? How many big, strong bodybuilders do you see doing pronation? They're standing there next to their squat rack and they're going, okay? Or maybe they hook it around the thumb, okay? And they're working their pronation. You get the point. Some of you are probably laughing, okay? Now, that's the whole issue, is that nobody's doing that. The bodybuilders aren't doing it. Now, obviously, that's the reason they're losing to Schoolboy, is because they don't have any pronation strength. If you've ever seen him train, he works pronation all the time, okay? And he'd like this video. He'd know exactly what I'm talking about. Your ability to pronate, coming from the pronation muscle. That's the only way you're going to generate this force. And it's the only way you're going to have the power to resist getting your hand flipped over at the tournament. It's the only way to resist that force is with pronation strength. So if you wonder why your hand's going down at the tournament, if you're one of those people who's complaining about losing at the table, or you're losing at the table, I'm not saying you're complaining, but you're losing at the table, but you're not working pronation, okay? You have your answer. You are losing at the table, more than likely, okay? Especially if you've been arm wrestling for a while, like I said, and we're making the assumption you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, then that's probably why you're losing at the table. But when it comes to strength, okay? If you're not training, and I've done lots of videos for this, you guys know that, but if you're not doing training specifically for your pronator and your pronation strength, okay, that is a huge mistake, okay? And it's one of the biggest mistakes you could make in your arm wrestling career. And I'm here to save you. I'm here to save you time, wasted years, okay, and mountains of wasted time, okay? If you're losing at the table, you could focus all day on grip strength, wrist strength. You could focus on doing the next shoulder roll or shoulder press or some kind of thing. And it's easy to think, maybe that's the answer, right? Maybe my hooks is, maybe I don't know how to hook. Or maybe I need to improve my top roll, okay? Or maybe I need to develop a press, okay? Maybe I need to work on my back pressure, okay? That's the problem, is that there's so many factors going on, and it's easy to lose sight of some of the most important things, okay? If you were just a regular guy, okay, and you know, just like all the other arm wrestlers, right? You're working out, you're putting in your table time, okay? If you doubled the amount of pronation exercises that you did, if you just did more pronation exercises than most of your opponents, and yeah, most of your opponents, the guys that aren't in the pro classes, most of them, they're not doing pronation exercises. They're not spending hours a week working on the pronation aspect of their game and the pronation strength in their arm, okay? And if you are, I apologize. If you're one of those guys who's just out there killing it, doing pronation all the time, good for you, okay? But for most people, they're running into problems because of a lack of pronation strength. I hope that helped you guys. I'll see you in the next one.